Teclis, Loremaster of Hoeth.
Hey everyone, it's me, HawkeyeG here, and today we've got another faction overview video for you, this time for the Order of Loremasters faction for the Mortal Empires campaign. So with that, let's just jump in and take a look. So, to get started, we're going to first talk about some of the unique aspects of the Order of Loremasters faction. Again, since this is a base game faction, they don't bring any unique units into the game, and they don't really have any specific unique mechanics, but there are a couple of interesting features that I do want to talk about. So the first one is one of their bonuses, the recruitment cost reduction for Swordsmasters of Hoeth and Phoenix units. Now, these aren't the most incredible units in the game, and if you have the DLC, you're probably just going to do Sister of Avalorn spam with maybe some Phoenix Guard and Dragons anyway. However, it at least gives you a good option for the early to mid game, right? Because, at least for me, I usually want Phoenix Guard in my army. So I'm going to want a Shrine of Asuryan. Phoenixes are in there, so you're going to get to have them, right? And you always want mages. If you're playing as the High Elves, you always want mages, which is going to give you Swordsmasters of Hoeth. That means you don't have to go out of your way to find additional building slots to recruit specific units of a different type, and so that might be able to give you a slight edge when you're around tier 4 in the game, instead of pushing for Sisters of Avalorn. If you don't have room for this extra slot, you still have a pretty good solution to become a pretty powerful contender on whatever continent you're fighting for, and especially since you start with pretty limited building slots, that can be a good option. Another thing to point out is another one of his faction mechanics, the diplomatic relations plus 10 with men, high elves, wood elves, lizardmen, and dwarves, right? So pretty much the entirety of the forces of Order he has a diplomacy bonus with, right? Now, that's one of the two main ways you can play this campaign, right? As with any campaign, you can pretty much just go through, conquer everybody you want, try to confederate all the members of your own race if possible, and just win the game. However, with Teclis, it is possible to do more of a diplomatic solution, right? You can fight pretty much only forces of destruction while allying yourself with only forces of order, and making use of this bonus will really help with that, right? You start out here fighting the Vampire Coast and the Dark Elves here. You can try to befriend the Lizardmen here. Maybe you would go and help the Human Realms with the Skaven, or maybe you would go and help the Lizardmen and the High Elves with the Dark Elves. Maybe you could even consider an expedition to the east and fight the Greenskins or something like that. But just so that you're aware that that's an option, right? It's a small bonus to start with, but it helps, right? It pushes you in that direction and gives you a good head start if that's what you're looking for. The next thing I want to touch on real quick is Teclis' strength as a hero, and it's specifically as a spellcaster, and even more specifically, the power of his unique items. Now, every lord has some quest battles they can do to get some unique items, but on Teclis, these are especially important. As you can see, if you look at these stats, you have Winds of Magic cost reduction for some of your spells, you have Winds of Magic power reserve increase and cooldown reduction on your spells, again miscast based chance, Winds of Magic cost and Winds of Magic power reserve increase, and again cooldown reduction, right? 50% cooldown reduction, almost 40 Winds of Magic power increase, and Winds of Magic cost reduction for some of your best spells. If we look at Chain Lightning here, this is a good spell, and it only costs 5 Winds of Magic. He has other skills in here that affect that as well, so don't forget about that. But just make yourself aware that is one aspect of getting really strong on Teclis. More than most lords, it's important to do your quest battles and get him his unique items, because that will make him much more powerful and just allow you to do a lot more damage and play a lot more effectively. Now, the last thing that I want to touch on before I walk through the campaign and what it kind of looks like, or at least what my progression looked like, is that the Order of Loremasters has Frozen Climate as unpleasant. Now, typically for a High Elf campaign, especially anybody starting on Ulthuan, once you take Ulthuan, your next step is generally to go and take the Dark Elf lands. However, as Teclis, this might not be what you want your primary objective to be, because those are going to be unsuitable climate for him, or unpleasant, whatever. In addition, the difference is, like, his suitable climates, the savanna and the jungle, that actually means that all of this southwestern continent is suitable climate for him. And so that's going to lead into the progression through the campaign. The first major decision you have to make is whether you want to do the diplomatic or military style playthrough like I described. You know, you can conquer everybody, or you can try to befriend the Order factions and help them with their campaigns against the forces of destruction instead, right? It's pretty possible to do. You can get a lot of alliances fairly easily and still gain enough power, especially by confederating High Elves when you're strong enough. However, the next most important decision you want to make is if you're going to fight the Lizardmen or not. Even if you're not going for strictly a diplomatic victory, you still kind of want to have, you know, some allies somewhere, if possible, right? Whether that be the Lizardmen or the humans or the dwarves, it's nice to have some trade partners. And of course, you can do that pretty easily with the Lizardmen here at the start, because you're going to be fighting the Vampire Coast and the Dark Elves, and you'll be able to gain relations with the Lizardmen really fast. However, I do think that if your goal is not the diplomatic victory route, that you should fight the Lizardmen because of what I said earlier. All of this territory, except for the mountain range, is suitable, and you can just use the mountain range, leave it to the Spine of Sotek Dwarves faction, and make a trade agreement with them instead, right? If you take all of this territory, that's your most direct route to becoming powerful and gaining a good amount of income. You can try taking over Ulthuan or eventually confederating the people there, but you probably won't be able to get there fast enough and take it over fast enough to compete with Tyrion right off the bat. You're going to have to confederate him later. And so again, the best route to do that is to take over the Lizardmen. With those things in mind, I'm going to step through my route to victory on this campaign, which was a little bit of a different path. It's how I learned that you should fight the Lizardmen early on, but we'll see what kind of options you have. So at the start of the campaign, it's pretty straightforward. You have an enemy that you're already at war with, which is the Skaven. They've got 3 settlements, so presumably they have the Fuming Serpent, the Blood Swamps, and this settlement that marks the Old Ones. They are actually at war with the Blessed Dread, but it's likely the Blessed Dread will come to attack you anyway. The ideal outcome of your the first few turns, or like the first section of the game, is to defeat both the Vampire Coast and the Blessed Dread, and even potentially the Clan Pestilence Skaven group that is here in Oaksil. If you can have control of all 3 of these provinces, that's an enormous start. But any amount of territory you can claim early on is going to help you a lot, especially if you can get yourself out of just the volcanic islands. Taking either of these provinces, or even parts of them, like Chupa Yodel with the gold, will go a long way. Once you have taken control of as much of that territory as you can, it's probably now time to fight the Lizardmen. You can certainly take some time to build up, and as Techless, I think it's one of the campaigns where it's more appropriate to take your time and build up, just because you're pretty stranded. So it's a good idea to build up potentially to either the Swordsmaster and Phoenix combo that I talked about, or perhaps just to getting Sisters of Avalorn and pushing out with that, or whatever your favored unit may be, whatever you think might work best against the Lizardmen. Otherwise, at this point in time, you kind of build up your forces and prepare for an expedition to Ulthuan. If you can find any remnant minor factions here in Ulthuan, you'll want to take them over to give yourself a staging ground for attacking the Dark Elves. That is, unless you go the route that I described earlier and attack the Lizardmen. But that's what I ended up doing this campaign. Because of the occasionally slow nature of your growth rate in this game, it may take you some time to build up your forces to the point where you're recruiting the kinds of units that you want, or you have the buildings that you're looking for in the provinces that you do control. With that being said, once you feel you have the strength, you can go out and start trying to establish yourself an outpost on Ulthuan and looking towards the north. You also should be trying to establish good relations with the playable factions, because eventually you will most likely be able to confederate them, and that will help you take control of this territory as opposed to trying to fight them and defeat the military alliance that is likely to occur with them. Even if you take a defensive alliance with them, it's still very easy to confederate them, but that will also allow you to replenish and move through their territory without any issues. You can also establish them as great trade partners, don't forget that you also have the Bretonnians and the southern realms, as well as the Bretonnians and the Tomb Kings down here to the southeast. All of these are excellent candidates, particularly here in the southeast, for making trade deals and non-aggression pacts with, because you're not going to want to take this territory, and here in the east, like we know with the diplomatic relations base bonus, it's going to be just a little bit easier for us to become friends with them and get trade agreements set up. Once you have yourself a decent position on Ulthuan, whether that be through defensive allies, confederation, war, or whatever it may be, if you can set yourself up with a position to be able to recruit a new army from, even if it's not that great of an army, to have a territory that you can call your own to position from and recruit from, this will give you an excellent staging grounds to begin fighting the Dark Elves. There's a good chance that other High Elf factions will already be there, and that's why I recommend fighting the Lizardmen first, which you'll see me circle back around to and realize at this stage of the campaign. It's also important to note that Chaos is going to show up right around this time in the campaign, and especially if the battle for the north is as split as it is here, you're going to see Chaos push their way through pretty easily, keeping the Dark Elves busy and hurting their power rating, which will kind of buy you the time that you need to work on whatever your other projects are, if you're not already committed to attacking the Dark Elves directly. As time progresses, depending on the overall strength of the Dark Elves, the success of the High Elves, and the success of Chaos, you can see a shifting balance of power both here in the north and on Ulthuan. Ideally, around the time of Chaos's appearance, you should be able to get the extra diplomacy bonuses that you need to be able to start confederating your High Elf allies and making them into your own. This may grant you territory in the north, but you probably don't want to hang on to that too desperately unless you've already committed your own original forces to capturing this territory in the first place. In addition, you can see here, this is when I finally decided to take over the Lizardmen, and honestly, it went pretty easily, and you can see this is all very suitable climate for me. It also leaves behind a couple of small factions that you can very easily make some trade agreements with for added income. Once you reach this stage of the game, you have to start counting, or you should start counting your territories to try and determine what places you need to get and what's your best route for victory. Right? Having these territories in the southwest will give me Itza and the Awakening. I can also get Hexwaddle. From here, I have Lothern and the Gaian Vale. I also have the Galleon's Graveyard, which I took on my way to Ulthuan. And at this point, we could consider pushing over to the east because there's 3 territories here, Skavenblight, Miragliano, and Sartosa. However, it depends on whether you're going to take the victory and run or whether you want to continue the campaign onward. You got to be careful who you decide to attack, because depending on how well the human realms have been doing versus their opponents, you might be able to just ally Reichland and get an easy win, like an ally Reichland and Bretonnia, or you might see the invasion of Norska, and you might see the Skaven succeeding, and it's very likely on current patch that you'll see the Greenskins doing well until the Empire gets their footing, which, honestly, sometimes it doesn't happen. So, or at least it takes them quite a ways into the campaign, much longer than it used to in the past. So you kind of have to make a decision based on that. If you want to capture these territories, you go for the Dark Elf capital, if there's some military alliances you can possibly make, or if you're going to have to fight. Once everything is said and done, you should have a pretty good amount of territory under your control. You may still be slightly dealing with Chaos, or having to push them back. It's likely Archaon the Everchosen will appear around this time. It's also likely that he will be dealt with either by the Greenskins or the Empire, but it's kind of hard to say. You never really know how that's going to turn out. It usually doesn't go great for Chaos, but it really depends on how balanced or unbalanced the power structure is in the East. But at this point, especially in a techless campaign, you should either be allied with or have control over much of the East or the Western territories. Especially up here in the Dark Elf territory, you can see the Chaos forces have still done a complete number on them. We were able to take over most of it, and this is where the campaign comes to a close. So once you've reached this point, you should be set. You should have everything that you need for a campaign victory. You might have to wait for Archaon to die, but that's pretty much it. So thanks for watching the guide. I hope that gave you some useful information on one of the courses that a techless campaign can play, as well as some of the things to keep in mind when starting your own in order to put yourself on the right direction, instead of wasting 40 turns like I did, building up just to go and take Schrace and then come back to the south anyway. With that said, thanks for watching, hope you have a great day, and we'll see you on the next one.